Welcome to the Vault. I am JJ Carroll. I have a great guest, and I want to bring him right in. It's Shane Jenkins. He is I don't even know, here's the words that we use when I was in law enforcement: a former ex-con or an ex-con, a J6er. And we had him on about a week ago, and I wanted to have a longer discussion just to talk about something that I think is very important. And my views on this have evolved after 24 years in law enforcement, and that is our prison system and the need for reform. As I call this the age of awakening, and I believe that everything needs to be challenged. And I mean everything. Everything that has any impact on our lives, or you're seeing why is it our prison systems don't work? Why is it that we have so many people in prison? Why is it that inmates can get drugs, be sexually abused? How is this allowed? And if we need to reform prisons to a point where it's maximum solitary confinement lockdown for everyone to be safe, then that's what it needs. Something needs to change, because what's happening right now just isn't working. And everyone knows it. The people on the inside, the people on the outside, people in the business, in the system. And there's a lot of money, a lot of money involved in this. So let's bring Shane Jenkins in. Come on in, Shane. Welcome back, my friend. I'm glad that you agreed to come speak to us in a really longer format, so we're not rushed for a 15-minute segment. That I want to just give you as much time as you need to talk about what you're an expert in. You've been in the system. You've been in state and local, and you've been in the federal system. It gives you, unfortunately, a very unique perspective. I've been on the other side of the prison system, state and local and federal. It's not a good place. It looks like absolute misery. Am I wrong?
No, you're absolutely correct. And I believe God, unfortunately, but fortunately, I believe God picked me for a time like this with my experience, with my background. So I'm thankful for all those experiences. I'm glad I don't have to go through them again, but I'm thankful that I had them. But because I do have an interesting perspective, because for somebody who did juvenile prison time, who did adult time in the state of prison at local counties, and then in the state prison system, and then now who has experienced federal prison time, I have a broad experience. And so, I witnessed the things that blew me away the most, like was federal prison. I couldn't believe that. I thought, we figure America is leading the way in the world, and you would figure that our prison system would be the best. But I would almost bet money that if we looked at the recidivism rates around the world, that we are not probably in the top 25 countries around the world. And so we do have some work to do, and I'm thankful to be here to have this conversation with you today.
Now, you're in a prison ministry right now where you're spreading the gospel. Let's talk about that first before we start getting into what needs to be changed or the reforms that you believe needs to be happening.
Yeah, so like I say, went to juvenile prison at the age of 16 until I was 19, and did 3 trips in adult state prison. In 2016, my mom had died in 2012. 2016, God came in and met me at the Carroll Vance unit, which is oddly enough a program it's called Prison Fellowship. It was started by Chuck Colson, who was the hatchet man for Richard Nixon. He took the fall for Watergate, and he went to federal prison, built some relationships with some men in prison. And when he was getting ready to get out, he said, the guys stopped him and they said, "Chuck, don't forget about us." And he looked at those men and he said, "Absolutely, I will not forget about y'all." And so he got out, started a program, used his political connections, and started a program called Prison Fellowship, which is an 18-month program designed around the life of Jesus Christ. And so after my 3rd trip to adult prison, I had been denied parole 3 times. And I was like, the only way I'm going to get out is to join this Christian program. And I did. And so I signed up for it. And man, God had a surprise for me. I was not prepared to meet him that day in December of 2016. But Charm Prison Ministry, and I'm a tall guy. I'm like 6'1", 6'2", and I've been playing basketball my whole life. And that's how I pass my time in prison and get my stress out. Well, Charm Prison Ministry here in West Houston, they bring in these guys who played college basketball. Some of them played for the Spurs or for the Harlem Globetrotters. Like, these guys are good, and some of them are 6'6", 6'8", 6'9", and it was fun. But they whooped our butts on the basketball court, and I was not prepared for it, And so they beat us down. They sent us back to our dorm, and they said, you guys come back to the chapel. We're going to nurse you back to health. We're going to feed you some brisket and some gumbo and share the gospel with you. And I was like, man. And so I'll never forget. And I share this just because it's a important, and this is like the linchpin of my life and my testimony. And so we go back into that chapel, and all the guys that whooped us on the basketball court are sitting there with their brisket and gumbo, smiling at us, trying to be friends with us now. And I remember turning right, and I go down to they had these tables set up with this food. And I just remember walking in there, man, and these women were there, and they had this food, and they had this joy and this peace, and they just exuded this love that I didn't understand. And for somebody who had left a path of destruction that was my life, I felt like that big in front of that love. I felt like, I had 5 children by 5 different women. This was my 3rd trip in as an adult in prison. I shot and killed my stepdad in self-defense at 20. Witnessed my friend shoot a guy and kill him, and shoot 2 more people while I was in the car with those people at the age of 16. And so there was just this path of destruction that was my life. And here these women are that took their weekend to come to prison, a place that I hate and I'm desperately trying to get out of. And here they are, smiling and happy and joyful, and they're giving us this food. And I remember I took that food and I sat down, and something inside of me just broke. And it was where, at that low point in my life, where Jesus Christ met me, and when I was at the end of my rope. And so I broke it at the meal. I'm sitting there, and then we go to the chapel, and they have a gospel. They delivered the gospel message. I stood up and professed to follow Jesus Christ for the rest of my life, and I did. I went through that 18-month program, got out of it, paroled to West Houston to Charm Prison Ministry, where we have 8 residential homes housing about 75 to 100 men coming out of prison. But these men specifically have a desire to walk with Christ, have had an encounter with Jesus Christ, and want to walk that out in these discipleship homes, and go to our church, which was Houston's First Baptist Church, and that church has embraced us. And so that is the model. But now Charm, like we have the discipleship homes, those 8, and then we also have the ministry where we go in. Now I've been into prison. The guys whooping the other guys on the basketball court, I get to be those guys now too. So we go in and we play volleyball, basketball, and softball at 25 different prisons in the greater Houston area, and share the gospel message with them, share our testimonies. And I can look at those guys, they can tell I've been through it, and they say, that's one of us right there. And so I get to tell them, like, there is life on this side of the fence, and after prison, and as a felon, and moving forward. And so, and with Christ, all things are possible. And so it's a beautiful thing. And I'm so blessed to be a part of Charm Prison Ministry.
All right, my first sponsor of the night is Bella Grace. Bella Grace, go to shopbellagrace.com/JJ. I have my restorative gummies, my restorative sleep gummies. My wife and I are using those. I wake up, I don't have any issues, meaning I'm not groggy. I'm alert and ready to go. But the thing that I want to talk about, my wife and I just got this over the weekend, and we started the elixir, because my wife and I are getting a little older. My wife's beautiful. I am not. And I need something for my skin. I need something for my gut, my immune system. I need something for the whole body. And that's my elixir, or our elixir. I'm giving it 30, 60 days, my wife and I, and we're going to just kind of journal and figure out, hey, how do I feel today? Is this really worth it? And I'm going to tell you, Brandon House and Melissa House swear by it. Absolutely swear by it. And I trust them. And I don't trust many people, just if you haven't figured that out, but I will say that out loud. I do not trust a lot of people, period. I do trust this company, and I do trust Melissa House and her husband, Brandon. I just do. Brandon swears by it. Melissa says if she doesn't have it for like a week, like she goes on vacation and forgets to pack the small package. She goes, I feel it. Like I feel different, not in a good way. So I'm starting to take it. It's easy. It's like I tell my wife before, she goes, well, what do we take? And I said, well, this is what we're doing. Think of when our son was a little kid and he was hungry. We'd give him an applesauce, little squishy, and he'd just squeeze the applesauce and he was all happy and it was all over his face. Well, these are very tiny. If I turn it to the side, you can barely see it. And you just squeeze it. Tasty, done, and you move on the day. It's that easy. Go to shopbellagrace.com/truth and look at all their testimonies, all of their peer reviews. Everything is there and open. I love it. I love the companies that we use on Worldview Tube and on my show. Now, when you're talking about in prison, what do you think the biggest, I think the biggest hurdle or the biggest thing that oppresses you is the feeling of hopelessness. Am I correct on that?
Oh, absolutely. And even going back as a volunteer going into the prison, like you can tangibly, substantially feel when you walk into that place. You can feel the darkness. You can feel the hopelessness, the desperation, the sadness, the misery, the loneliness. Like it is a tangible thing, and it's an obstacle to be, man, it is an oppressive feeling. And it's something that I believe we can change. I believe part of our responsibility is because the family is suffering right alongside with the man or woman in prison. And I think that's one of the things that the prison fellowship program that Chuck Colson started does. It very successfully reintegrates and allows the family to participate in this person's healing. And they can heal as a family. The children suffer traumas from dad being gone or mom being gone. The relationship, the marital relationship suffers from separation and from resentments, whether it's I've got to raise the kids while you're in and you were being selfish and went and got yourself in trouble. And now, there's a lot of strain on relationships. And so I believe we have to look at this from a social aspect and integrate the family into the healing, and bring some of that hopeless, because when men have somewhere to go to when they get out and they know that, hey, my kids and wife are going to be waiting on me, there's something to be said for that. That's a peace of mind that a man or a woman can have, that their significant other and children are waiting on them when they get out. So I think we need to reimagine this thing. We can do a much better job. I like to say it sounds stupid when I say it, but we need to make prison great again.
No, I think well, I think when you look at things logically, Shane, when you look at things and you go, okay, it would be different if everything was working, right? And let's say prison sucked, and which it does, and it worked. Then we would just say, well, that's tough. Just make it work. Figure it out. But it's tough, and that's fine, but it's not working. There's I know this is a bigger topic than just prison and people in prison, because it's a societal issue. However, just looking at it from a practical common sense, this is not working. When you go into prison, how is there drugs available, sex available, every kind of illicit thing is allowed? How is this allowed? Because that means that the prison guards have to be corrupt, because they had to allow this to happen. There's like a whole different economy and a whole different nation within prisons. Do you agree with that? And if you do, what is it like? What is it, the commerce and the economy? What's it like in prison?
Well, yeah, so this is another thing, and I think, like with my experience, like watching the state of Texas and the way they manage their prisons, obviously there are drugs and some contraband and phones and this, that, the other, knives and stuff like that. But for the most part, like Texas has a stranglehold on that. Now you're going to have the bad guard here or there, or you're going to have the vendor that comes, the bread truck driver, or the Swan's delivery truck. There's going to be, where you have human social interactions, you're going to have corruption. That's just the nature of man as since Adam, right? And so that's going to happen. But what I witnessed in the federal prison system is a lack of desire to enforce the rules. The officers only cared like if this guy being high and passed out and slumped over in the day room is going to cause him a problem for work, then it's a problem. But if it's not, like if he's in his cell, it doesn't matter. And there's just a deliberate indifference that I witnessed in the federal system. And that's not obviously, I feel like the previous Federal Bureau of Prisons director was more concerned about guards addressing inmates with their proper pronouns than she was about cleaning up her prison system. So I don't feel like the guards felt like they had top cover,
Right.
From the administrative all the way up to Washington, D.C., which is a scary place to be. And an officer, you're trying to take care of your family and feed your children, and I respect that. And so you're not going to put yourself in the middle of some fight at the prison and lose your job when you don't feel like your superiors have your. And I believe that goes from like Washington to the wardens are probably in on it. And, I witnessed guards telling people that, don't beat people over here, but you can do it like over here Monday through Friday when there's more staff here. So, and I'm like, how about we don't do it at all? Like, I heard the guards told me because I was at the medium facilities. I was at Pollock Medium and at Terre Haute Medium. And there's a USP or a penitentiary next door to both of those. And the guards work both facilities. And they're like, yeah, Shane, because they talked to me because they're like January 6ers, they had a lot of respect for January 6 people. And they tell me that when a guy gets off the bus at the pen, I tell him, get a knife, better yet, get a few of them. And I'm just like, how? Okay, first of all, I'm a guard. I don't want to work in an environment where there's a bunch of knives, everybody's packing a knife.
Yeah.
I don't want to be around that. Second of all, how about we get rid of all the knives? If they're making them out of the beds, then take the beds out. Make a concrete slab of bed. They can't make a knife out of that. Or change the policy. And not to mention the fact that you imagine how these people that live, like say I'm the guy getting off the bus and I'm going to the penitentiary and the guard's like, get a knife. And I'm like, I don't want to carry a knife. And then I got to go into this war zone. And I'm in there fighting for my life and watching people get stabbed and getting stabbed. Or worse than that is like somebody who's not gang affiliated or goes into prison. Like what would happen is it would be like, JJ, hey, you're new here, we know, but you're first up on deck. You got to put in work or earn your keep around here. So for us to know you're an okay dude, the next mission that goes out, you and this other guy are going to have to go stab this guy. And if you don't do what they tell you to do, then you're the next one to get stabbed. And so imagine not wanting to participate in these things and being forced because it's either you or them. And at the end of the day, it's got to be you. You got to survive this, so you're going to do what you have to do. But then not only that situation, but imagine you've gone through that and now you try to transition back into society and live a normal life and go home and look at your wife and hug her and kiss her and tell her, like, I had to stab somebody in prison. Or look at your kids in the face and say, this is what I endured in prison, and nobody wants to do that. And how do they expect you to be successful at life whenever those types of things are going on? So, and these are just specific situations that I've witnessed, but it's a setup for failure. And we wonder why our recidivism rate is so high and why people are doing drugs the way they are is because they don't want to deal with all the stuff they've had to do or that they've been through or been stabbed, stab people, watch people die, whatever it is. I can understand wanting to numb that feeling or numb that trauma or not want to deal with it because I've been there. But we owe it to our community to do better.
If I made you the prison czar and said I need reforms, and I just said go start from the top down, give me some of your reforms that you would want to see, because I'm curious. I'm seeing if they're going to align with what I believe.
So one thing is and not to sound soft on crime, because I do believe that we need a place. If you want to come to prison, if I'm the prison czar, if you want to come to prison and you want to act a fool or you want to act ass, we got a place for you. First of all, if you're going to stab anybody, if you're going to be doing drugs, if you want to continue to gang bang or be in that, we're going to have places set aside for you guys. And that's what I would I like to call this policy that I would institute right track, wrong track. You're clearly on the wrong track. If you want to continue to commit crimes and reoffend while you're in prison and you're not even out yet, then you need to go somewhere. You need to go sit over here and do your time with the rest of these knuckleheads, and we'll deal with that. And that needs if that has to be solitary confinement or whatever, those guys are kind of off the radar for me. The ones I'm concerned with, and there's guys like this at penitentiaries, at mediums, at lows, at camps that want to better themselves. That if it's college, they want to get involved in it. If it's a trade, they want to get involved in it. If it's whatever it is, getting their GED, getting their high school diploma, or whatever, we need to provide that. And I think our resources need to go like the horrible prisons, those bad guys, put those in the worst prisons, like the Terre Haute, Indiana, where the water's poison or whatever it is, where I was at. But these other guys, I feel like we need to allocate our funds to these prisons for the right track prisoners that want to do the right thing and want to better themselves. I think we need to improve community engagement, whether it's allowing these guys on these community squads where they go into the communities, clean up these baseball parks, city parks, have an outside unit that goes to all the federal, like Yellowstone, like national parks, to clean up all these things and all these projects, like camps out in the mountains where they're like making pathways for hiking and doing all these different things for serving the community. So they're not just wasting their time, and they're able to earn a decent wage. I don't know what that wage is, and that would be up for debate. But that's another thing is these guys in prison, you get them in there, we're in there, and we're dependent upon mom against, or for our kids' moms or our wives or grandma or whoever it is, dad, grandpa, whoever it is that's taking care of us in there. And we're not only suffering there, but we're a burden on our family on the outside. So I think we need to introduce some type of wage. And this is what I like. This is another thing. Part of the right track, I believe around these prisons that are right track prisons, you can incentivize corporations building factories and other types of jobs right there around the prison. So they have a labor force here at the prison. You take these guys, either you build a tunnel over to the factory or whatever it is, to the shop, whatever it is, and then you incentivize these companies bringing these jobs back from China or Mexico or Thailand or wherever they're at. They build a factory. You give them a tax break. You can use the lower wage to pay these inmates, which is good for the customer because they can pass that savings on to the American customers that are buying these products or services or whatever they're providing. And then now you're paying these guys even like $5 an hour, $3.50 an hour adds up a couple $100 a week or $150 a week. Now mom and grandma aren't having to take care of me. Now I'm able to pay for my own commissary. Now I'm able to pay my court fines. Now I'm able to pay my child support. Now I'm able to be an asset to my family on the outside, have some pride about at least being able to take care of myself, and to give back to my family. If I want to help grandma pay rent, or grandma needs a new phone or needs a tire change or whatever, we could pay for that. And so not only that, but now the inmate is building a relationship with this corporation. So let's say I'm working at the Amazon distribution hub outside the federal prison that I'm in. Now, whenever I'm going back to Houston, Texas, I've built a relationship with Amazon, and we know they're everywhere. So now my supervisor at Amazon, JJ, I can call you and, hey, say, JJ, I'm out. I'm here in Houston. I want to go apply at Amazon. Can you call one of your fellow supervisors or somebody from corporate and let them know I'm coming up for an interview? Now I've built a relationship. Now I've got job security. When I hit the ground running in Houston, I've got a job to go to. I've built a relationship with this company. I've got experience from working in the factory. I'm familiar with how Amazon operates. I've been trained. I've got some whatever management training, whatever it is, to the position I want to move into. And so now we've built these relationships with these companies and these communities, the federal prison community, as well as local and nationwide community. So I think there's a whole broad, I feel like it's an ideology. We've got to get, because the thing I look at is Texas. Texas used to be the Texas Department of Corrections, and I think we may have talked about this. It used to be called the Texas Department of Corrections because they wanted to correct the behavior, right? They wanted to, you get 10 years in prison for selling drugs, they want to get at you in there, and they want you to correct the behavior. How do we work on you, help you work through whatever traumas you had in your life so we can get you prepared to move back out into society and get back to life? Well, after a time, Texas changed the whole, they reimagined their whole policy, the name of the whole thing, and changed it to Texas Department of Criminal Justice. They were concerned about one thing, extrapolating justice from the person who violated the law. Even if I just got caught with drugs that I'm using myself and I go to prison, they still want to extrapolate justice. And so they did away with a majority of the programs, the college training, education, and all that kind of stuff. They did away with a lot of it because they were only worried about one thing. If I got 10 years, they were worried about me doing my time and then letting me out, which is a society I don't think that's sustainable. Because if you think about which would you rather have? Would you have the Shane that corrected his behavior and learned from his mistake? Or would you just rather have the guy that did his time, didn't change a single thing about him, and is going to go back out, get rearrested because he hasn't, if nothing changes, nothing changes, right? And so he's going to get back out and go back for what he knows. When times get tough, he's going to get back out there in the streets and start hustling, selling drugs, using drugs, and breaking the law. He's going to end up back in prison, costing the taxpayers more money, leaving his children behind to be raised by the mom or by the streets or by the gangs or whoever it is. And so it's just this, there's so many layers of how this impacts society. I believe if we can get to the root of this, we can make a huge impact on the nation.
I agree with that. What would you say is the percentage of prisoners that would want to be in a program like that? Would you say if I'm in a prison that holds 5,000 people, how many prisoners would want to be a part of that?
I would probably say around 70%, and especially after they knew, what the herd, because the word's going to get out, and then you're
Right.
going to have some guys that want to live the old life and then try to do the program, and they're going to get weeded out. And so
Right.
I would probably say 65-70% would probably want to participate. I would guess.
That's a huge number, and I do agree. Like I don't. There's this argument, right? Okay, they committed the crime. We put them in prison. Now we're feeding them, clothing them, medicating them. That's our cost. They need to work for free. I don't know if that's how I feel anymore. I think there could be some median ground, some middle ground, and I say that for this reason. What if we just paid $10 an hour? That's the easy number, right? To add. So let's say someone's making $10 an hour. Then you could actually have a savings account that when you get out in 10 years, maybe you have several thousands of dollars, or you've been paying for your children and your wife, your family outside, and you've been able to save some money. So when you get out, now you have, instead of, I would assume that I get out of prison after 7 years. I have no job skills. I have been surviving. I am institutionalized. And now I'm being told, you got to get a job like right now. And because I'm homeless.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
a frightening, there's no way. Okay, maybe this is a better way of saying it. There's no way that scenario ends good. None. Like there's no way, because you're hungry, you're tired, you're freezing out. You're going to say, okay, I know the mindset. I don't have anything. They don't care about me. And the worst happens is I go back. All right, screw it. I'm going to do whatever I got to do to survive, because you've already I'm in that survival mindset, and you become what you're around, right? Mm-hmm. You become that. So I think there is some middle ground there. And I do agree with you that there are people that there's no reassimilating back into culture. They're evil, and we're lying to ourselves to say that, oh yeah, they'll be okay. They're just murdered a couple people and they're a child rapist, and we'll just change them and they'll go out. No, I believe there's a very special place. However, when you look at the vast majority of the prison population, we're not serving it correctly. And we the American people are going to take the brunt of it, right? Because where are you going to go rob and steal? You're going to rob and steal from other inmates? Or are you going to go when you see some guy that looks weak and is driving his car and you think, I'm just going to take that? I'm going to take everything he's got? Because you have that mindset built in. How hard is it? How hard is it to shake the institutionalization?
It is a lot. And even this time, like being on the right side of what I felt like was January 6th, like and getting out and thinking that, I've been out. How many times have I gotten out of prison? Several times I've had to rebuild my life from scratch, right? And fortunately, Charm Prison Ministry put all my stuff in storage because I got arrested here at Charm. I was able to pay my truck off while I was in prison, so I had a vehicle. They saved all my clothes, put them in storage for me, so I have all my clothes. And then I get out, and man, life is just coming at me 1,000 miles an hour. I didn't sleep the first 36 hours I was out, and so I'm trying to set up a new iPhone. Try to get into my old Apple account. I got to set up a laptop because people want to talk to me. I'm trying to set up this laptop, figure out, and I've struggled with tech stuff. Trying to get an ID, trying to like get in contact with people. Like there's just so many things coming at me. And from looking at it from the prison standpoint, you've got like, okay, am I going to go to Chow to eat tonight? Am I going to go to Rec tonight? Am I going to watch this hour of TV tonight? To like being like, and that's it, to being completely out. I was driving down the road the other day and I see all these signs and just text messages and social media and just being bombarded, like just overwhelmed, like with stimulation. And it's like almost like I just have to like push it away. And so that's just the mental aspect of it, not to mention, like you say, the pressure we put on ourselves. Especially if you have family that's dependent on you, or you're coming home to your wife and children who have been lacking without you, and then now you're trying to get back on your feet. And it's how hard it is to get a driver's license. It took me about a month to get a driver's license. Like you can't just go to the DMV anymore. You've got to make an appointment, and then they don't tell you what documents you have. You got to go down there, and everybody kind of knows what documents you have, but it may take a month and a half, 2 months to get a license. So how are you supposed to go get a job if you don't have a license or a way to get there? There's just a lot to it that we could be doing a lot better. And now, fortunately, and when I was talking about the mental stuff, like getting out, like life's overwhelming me, and I've got other guys that are January 6ers that have never been to jail before, and they're like calling me, like saying, "Man, Shane, I need to talk to you. I'm having a really, really hard time," and it breaks my heart because I'm here struggling myself, and I've got my battle buddies from the DC Gulag calling me saying, "Man, I had to just lock myself in my room for a little while. I'm having a hard time adjusting," and so these are civilians, what I would call, that are suffering from this trauma from being in jail. But imagine the guys that don't have the support that the January 6th guys have, and they're getting out of prison and trying to re-establish their lives. And it is difficult. And I think we need to partner. Churches need to partner. Like Charm Prison Ministry is the perfect team of standing in the gap, right? Like they're between the community and the prison, and the men land here, and they kind of they have homes, and they have people to take you to your DMV appointment, people to take you to your job interview, or to where you get your birth certificate or your social security card. So we have methods to it, but the average individual just getting out of prison doesn't have that. And it isn't a lot, and it's a burden on the family, and it's a burden on the kids. Like it's a burden on everybody. And so it's mentally taxing, physically taxing. We should be making it easier, man, and we're not.
Patriots with an S made.com. And my pitch is very simple. Why are we spending our money on box stores or on products that are run by companies that despise us, that do not like what we believe in, and that fund through their profits organizations that are antithetical to our belief? And the answer is you should not. But where do I go? Where you go to patriotsmade.com. And then you purchase products that are unbelievably and ironically green, all natural. There's no metals or dyes in their shampoo. There's no metals in their lotion. There's no plastics in their food. There's no anything. Go to patriotsmade.com/JJ. Well, you know, I didn't even think of that in that perspective. Identification and setting things up, and that could be done in house. Like the prisons know who's being released, right? It's not like they wake up one day and go, "Oh my God, we have 500 people being released today." They're tracking it through their tracking system. So why not a month out say, "Okay, Shane, here we go. You're going to the out process. Now let's start. What do we need?" And there's a checklist, and then the DMV comes in and does everything. Okay, boom. Here's your ID. It's in your packet. When you leave, there you go. And then if you had a bank account, even if you had $1,000 in it, then okay, we're going to get you a credit card. We're going to work through. So now you have access to money and credit. And these are small things that are overwhelming when you're on the outside for the first day, being released and just sitting there like, where do I even go? How do I even go anywhere? Right? Where's do you take a bus? I mean, is there a trolley? Is there any discussion every time that you got released? Was there anything where there was a change? I know where you're at now, but prior, was there any discussion or try to get that transition from prison to normal life, or was it just okay, your time's done, get out?
Well, so the BOP, the Federal Bureau of Prisons, does something kind of like that. We ordered my Social Security card. We ordered a prison ID for me to get when, like, they give you an ID that's considered a federal document, basically an ID. But none of those things were ready when I got out. So, and we were planning for the January 20th release, and I got 0 documents that day. And so there are things that kind of help you do that, like as far as the Federal Bureau of Prisons. But if you talk to those case managers, the people who are responsible for doing those things in the Bureau of Prisons, they are overwhelmed. They are understaffed and overworked, and they are just not prepared to take on the amount of work that they do. And not to mention, they feel like there's a dam about to bust at these prisons, and they're just putting their finger in these little cracks and another one's popping out, and it's just they don't have enough people to do it, or a desire, or the top cover, or any kind of motivation. So I think there's somebody with a law enforcement background like yourself, and somebody who wants to be a disruptor, like to break up the system. There needs to be these conversations had at the highest level down to the lowest level employees. How can we serve the employees better so the employees can better serve the inmate population? And I just don't think that they're having that now. They're just trying to stay alive and stay floating in there, and it's not serving anybody.
No, I think that we're witnessing the American infrastructure, and I'm talking everything from roads to hospitals to schools to prisons. I believe everything is crumbling as we are living. It's falling apart because we've been lied to. We're living in a house of cards. And once that first card gets flipped or gets knocked away, the house is going to start tumbling. And when it does, it's going to be very, very painful, I believe. What other aspect or what other change would you do immediately if you had the power?
So again, on the right track, people, there's a couple other things, and these are things that Stan in the Gap is working on doing for the January 6th people. Not to keep talking about that, but we're working on credit repair. So, like, basically kidnapped by the federal government. That's what happened, right? So bank accounts, credit cards, mortgages, car notes, whatever it is, just into default. And so I believe you've got these guys earning their basic income, whatever it is, right? Now you start, okay, we download the Credit Karma app. We get them working on their credit score. So now they can kind of either, pay off some of these debts that they've incurred so they don't go into collection, start repairing their credit. So when they hit the ground, now they're able to qualify for a prepaid debit card, whatever, or set up in a bank account. So they're prepared to let's get them a bank account. Let's get them building a rapport with Bank of America or Wells Fargo or Old Glory or whoever. Let's have them. Now they can start establishing, hey, I was in prison. I made a mistake. Now I'm working on my life and I'm trying to get back on track. Let's have them build a relationship with their community bank back home. That's one thing. Another thing that I'm very serious about is dental care. I broke a front veneer 6 months before I got out. So I'm walking around with this tooth, and it was horrible. And it sounds funny. I had the Bubba tooth going on, but nobody should have to walk around like that. Like, we should have basic dental. Like, the waiting list in federal prison to get your teeth cleaned is over 2 years long. Like, I didn't get my teeth cleaned the whole time I was in. So that's unacceptable. The medical care is horrific. And so that's another thing we're working on funding is, and these things also work hand in hand with charm prison ministry. I think we could be doing credit repair, the banking, but also medical care for people to get out. When they get out of the system, we need to improve the medical care, dental care in prison, but as well as we need to work on funding guys having medical care on the outside, just basic health care. And whether it's by donations or these companies want to serve a disadvantaged community, a disenfranchised community, then let's help these guys get the health care they need. Let's help them get the dental so they can get to work and have decent smiles so they can, be presentable at their sales jobs or whatever it is they're doing. We want them to have dignity and respect. And I think that's kind of where we lack is I understand, people break the law. They need to be held accountable, but we've got to start seeing the humanity in people. And I think that's kind of like where I want to attack the Republican Party is because we like to throw away, as Republicans, we like to throw people in prison and throw away the key. If we could, we would just be like, you're disqualified, you're out, right? But that's not how it works. And so if we read the Bible, Jesus talked, and Republicans will say, I'm a Christian, I'm a believer, right? Well, then why have you forgotten about the prisoner? Jesus talks about the prisoner. He's like, I think the disciples he says, yeah, you came and visited me in prison. The disciples were like, we didn't visit you in prison. And he says, if you did it unto the least of these, you did it unto me, right? And so he's talking about serving the prisoner. And I think that if we can get these legislative, whether it's the BOP policy changes in, or we can get this Biden crime bill thrown out, or reimagined or rethought into a new legislative law for federal law, we can hold these Republicans to their faith or their beliefs as a Christian, and try to get them to sit down and have this conversation. It's not an easy conversation, and I don't think all these things will happen. But I think we have to think. We have to dream big. I think we should have a committee that goes around and let's tour the best prisons in the world. Who has the lowest recidivism rate? Where I think it's like Norway or Scandinavia or somewhere. Let's see how they're doing it. Let's take it. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. Let's just try to emulate the policies that they're instituting in prisons and the way they transition these people back into society and analyze their recidivism rate. Let's have that conversation, because clearly what we're doing is not working. And I know there's some different societal things in our society that are different. But let's have that conversation. We have an opportunity to do these. Let's dream big. Let's go in and fix it. Let's serve our communities.
I think that's a very fair request. I do. Because, again, we go back to, is it working? Nope. And everyone knows it. Everyone knows it. Some people want it harder. Some people, and I'm all for, hey, this is your time. You're going to do it. It's not going to be pleasant. We're not going to make it easy for you. You're going to do it. However, there is a way to do it that benefits society as well, right? There just is. Now, you said, well, maybe the communities can help and maybe this and maybe that. I agree with that. However, why are we putting the burden on churches and communities when we're sending hundreds of billions, maybe $1 trillion+ a year overseas? Why are we not having the greatest prison systems along with the greatest healthcare system and the greatest of everything? Why are we ignoring our own people? Why do we have this prison system? And when you look at the population growth of America, it's been going kind of like this or kind of flatlining, but the prison population is almost going vertically. It's an anomaly. It can't happen. It should not happen that way. The growth in prison should kind of go the same and kind of flow and ebb and flow as the population increases or decreases. And we're not seeing that. We're seeing prison population skyrocketing. Now, if we need 1 million beds for prisoners, then we need to build 1 million beds. We don't need to build 700,000 and say, well, we're overcrowded and throw it away. No, that's inexcusable. But if I came to you and said, okay, we have 1 million prisoners right now, we're going to try a different system, and then that system shows, or my projections are, we're going to be down to 500,000. Well, that's great if the recidivism rate drops, but instead we don't. I remember in the early to late 90s, I was working for a construction company before I went into the Border Patrol. And one of the constructions was the Orleans Parish Prison, OPP. Horrific place. Horrific. Inmates didn't have any place. I literally saw a mattress, I swear to you, I'm not making this up, a mattress that was right next to, and part of the mattress was under a urinal. And that was that prisoner's space to live. This is wrong. This is it's wrong in this way. What is I think there's multiple reasons for prison, but the two main: keeping really, really bad people out of our society, put away, rapists, murderers, all that. Then the other part of it is, if you want to call it the right track, people that did maybe not nonviolent crimes, but you can never know who's violent or who's not, right? Let's just say they're there to do their time. Well, isn't what the society wants is for them to not hurt anyone again, or not hurt themselves? So why wouldn't we put time, talent, and treasure to try to ensure that doesn't happen? And I don't know why we don't do it. Why we haven't thought of these things, right? It's a constant thing in my life where I see things that are so absurd, and you're like, well, why do we keep doing it this way? It's failing. Why don't we try something different? And even if that thing that we try is different, fails, we didn't lose anything. We were failing already, right? It's try something different. But what do you say to someone that says, no, those men are horrible, those women are horrible, they did it, I want them to do their full time, and I want it to be miserable? Well, what's your retort to that? Because there's a lot of emotion tied to this subject as well, as you know.
Right. I would say they need to read the Bible. If you look at all the people that the world gave up on or were outcasts, like, the story of Joseph, or Moses was a murderer, King David, murderer. Like, the redemptive power of Christ is real, and I think, I think we get emotional in these conversations. I was thinking, as you were speaking, I was thinking about Texas, and Texas has become, we have 110 prisons in Texas. I believe we have about 155,000 people in prison in the state of Texas. And
holy smokes.
Yeah. The thing is I believe Texas's model has become a business model. And when you operate in, ones and zeros, whatever, you kind of take the power of Christ out of it, and you're seeing, well, this is not effective. And what they've done is they've merged the corporations into the prison system. And I believe you take a lot of the love and the humanity out of it, right? You're just seeing it as an asset or a liability, and you're not really looking at it. I think we've kind of got to step back from that, or lean into more of the redemptive power, or are we believing what we're doing? It, like you say, we're treasure and blood, sweat, and tears investing in this. Do we believe in these men and these women that they can get their lives together? Otherwise, if you break the law one time, that's it. You're done for forever. Or do we believe that we're going to make a positive impact in these people's lives and invest in them so they can be the best father, son, daughter, business owner, churchgoer, community member when they get out? And I believe the second is true. I believe that it takes a special individual from different backgrounds, much like yourself, Border Patrol, guy that's been in trouble, redeemed by Christ, to see these things from different angles and figure out how to better invest in these people. Because And I think it's I don't like this word because the left has used it so much, but systemic. If you look at, I believe, and get a little conspiracy note on you, but like the CIA and Colombia and all this drug smuggling and these cartels, I believe, are tied into some of these nasty intelligence agencies, and so all these drugs coming across the border, and you've got these guys that in these inner cities that didn't go to school, didn't get educated, or dad's been in prison, whatever, and then now they start selling drugs, and then now they're in prison, and they've had 3 kids while they were out, and now these kids, like if you look at the statistics of the amount of men who go to prison who were raised without a father, I believe it's like 79% of all men in prison were raised without a father. And so this has kind of started this generational curse in our society. And I think we got to figure out how to combat that. And it's very prevalent in the black community. And I will say that I don't know if it's because of an inclination in their community as law breaking is more acceptable or what it is, but there's ways to combat all of that. We just have to figure out how to do it, and I think it's in better serving our communities. I think the crack pandemic created this generational curse in the black community, and we got to figure out how do we right that, how do we get this back on track. And so I look forward to that fight. It's an interesting conversation. I appreciate you letting me come on and have it with you.
No, I think it's going to take. I think it's going to take people like us and Sarah McAbee, because that's one of the outgrowths of her husband going to prison is she was adamant that there needs to be prison reform. And this is from a wife of a former law enforcement officer. Yeah. And you're listening to me and I'm saying the same thing. Well, it doesn't make sense. None of this makes sense. So let's try something different. And it's hard, right? It's hard for a law enforcement guy because I have friends that are boppers and I have friends that are sheriffs in the prison, and they can't wait to get out. They don't want to deal with these people. They don't, but this is a revolving door. We push them out, they come back in, to push them out. And I just believe we need some change. And I have 3 minutes left with you, and I could spend an hour on this next topic, but I got 3 minutes, and I just want to ask you, what is your belief on restorative rights? Meaning you come out of prison, you can't vote if you're a felon, you can't own a gun, so you are not you don't come out as a whole citizen. What's your take on that? What's the one thing I need? Maybe all the cell towers are down. I have it here in my box, is I have my sat phone. Sat123.com, sat123.com/JJ. Chris comes on our show every week on Friday, and we talk about the need to be prepared. That's it. When you look at my sponsors, it's preparedness and health. Because I think if you're not prepared and you're not healthy, it doesn't really matter. You're stuck in your house and you're going to die a slow death. Go to sat123.com/JJ or call the number on the line. So I had a viewer, audience viewer call me or text me and said, hey, I didn't write down the number. Then just go to sat123.com and they will set you up with a sat phone, free sat phone worth hundreds of dollars as long as you make a monthly subscription. And it's worth it. Be prepared. Never, ever be in a situation where you say, dang it, I should have done it, right? Sat123.com/JJ.
Whew. That's a good one. Like in Texas, as long as you're not on parole or probation, then you get your right to vote back. Now, some states that's not the case. But if you served your time, you served your time, and I believe constitutionally, your right to bear arms is protected. It doesn't say, well, if you go to jail, you can lose that right. I think it says shall not be infringed, and I just believe that should be as it states. I believe if everybody in society was required to carry a firearm, I believe we would live in a much safer society. Yeah. That's my personal belief, and I do believe once you serve your time, then it should be done. It should be over with.
And I agree with that wholeheartedly. I do, but America is not allowing that to happen. You can't vote if you're a felon, you can't vote in the federal elections. I believe, with a certain exceptions, of course, someone that's a mass murderer, someone that is violent, has a violent history, I don't want them having a gun. But if we're going to go back to this restorative, we want the individual to go back into society. We can't have someone go back into society and say, yeah, you're not getting all of the rights. Well, that's, and then I do believe that I had someone that I interviewed that was in prison for 21 years for murder, and it was a gang-related hit. And he said, I didn't come up with my sentence. The judge told me this is how much time you're going to do. I did it. When I did it, I paid for my crime. That's by your laws. Like you made this up. I followed it. I did it. Why am I not getting all of my rights back? How do you, where in the Constitution does it say that you give me back 3/4 of my citizenship? And it doesn't. And he's right. So,
That's right.
Man, there's so much more that I would love to talk to you about, and I'll definitely reach out to you again. I want to follow you as you make this transition into this world, and I appreciate you being so articulate about it. And I believe that it's going to take a whole approach, meaning people like Sarah McAbee, me, you. It's going to take prison reforms. I think it needs to be a top priority of President Trump, as there are endless priorities, but this is one of them because this is a direct impact on our society. So Shane, thank you so much. Tell us where we can find you, if you have X, if you have social, or where can we, if we can donate, where can we even donate to your ministry?
Yeah, absolutely. If you go on Instagram, it's therealj6_US. If you go to X, it's the Real J6 Shane. If you want to support us, if you want some t-shirts and gear like the one I have on or the hat I have on, you can go to therealj6.com. We have t-shirts, stickers, cards, all kinds of stuff on there. If you want to go check out what we're doing for restoring Gen Sixers lives and working on justice reform, please go to standinthegap.foundation. And follow us on there. And man, we appreciate you for having us on here. And moving forward, we're going to include you in any conversation we have with the Trump administration for justice reform. And that's certainly going to happen. So I can't
that's
wait.
Great. You keep fighting the fight. You're a great voice for this. You're incredibly smart and articulate. So God bless you. Thank you very much, Shane.
God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
twc.health/Brandon. This is one of our sponsors, has been now for a few years. Here it is. You just go there. If you use that URL, folks, you not only save money, but